Good day, good day. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Jay, and this is Homeschool Your Kids podcast. Today we have with us Elena. Elena.
Elena, yep.
Elena, introduce yourself, love.
My name's Elena Zarnowski. I started a company called Kid Laboratories, which offers kind of future forward education for kids. We're dynamic with homeschoolers, but I also am a big advocate that even if your child is in a traditional school, that you are the primary teacher. So skills like financial literacy, digital literacy, and character are really important to talk to your kids about.
Yeah, see, we here. We are here.
Yeah, I know. I think so. Yeah.
All right. So how do we get on this path? How do we get to Kid Laboratories?
Okay, so my path to education is a little bit unique. I was a 15-year vet in tech, so I worked for large companies like IBM and AMD. Then I decided I was going to stay at home and raise my kids, and of course, I wanted to teach them everything I knew. And I have, prior to that, I grew up from very humble beginnings. I have a single mom, Mexican, working, hand to mouth. So when she forced me, she was the iron fist, man. I love that woman. She was like, education is the path out. So I just put my head down. Thank God. I just loved learning. And, I went to a school, graduate economics and math major. And then I just kind of fell into tech. So I worked 15 years in tech. So when I became a mom, I stayed home. I really wanted to be home with my kids. And, it was at that time that I started noticing, hey, there are some areas of education that are kind of not lacking, or us as parents need to really lead the path. And I considered myself to be kind of, like a smart mom. I had all these, I call it inspirational values. Basically, what I thought, I was inspired to be this quote unquote type of mom. However, when I became a mom, I had 3 kids. I have 3 sons. It all falls to what, when you're in the working in motherhood. And so I remember one time at a store, I was in the checkout line, and I had a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 2-year-old, and they were like badgering me. I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that, and I just caved. I was checking. I was like, just be quiet. I just want to check out. Whatever you want, just grab it. Grab the candy. Grab the junk. Grab the dollar store bins, and just let's go. And as I walked out of the parking lot, I just like defeated. Like, here I am. I think I have all these aspirational values.
I think I'm good.
I think I'm a good mom. I know. I think I have like aspirational. I really wanted to like
homeschool families. Homeschool Yo Kids Expo and Homeschool Beats Academy are teaming up to bring you a day of real support and real inspiration. Come explore curriculum and enrichment, meet trusted vendors, and connect with the homeschool community. And at our featured Expo stop, meet Homeschool Beats Academy and see how students ages 7 to 18 can create original music through beat making and production with parent-friendly guidance. Get dates and details at homeschoolyokidsexpo.com.
have this thing teed up. So I went home that night and I wrote my first lesson for MoneyWise, which is now a course I teach across a bunch of community centers. And then I teach online to 11 to 14-year-olds. And it's basically, the fundamentals, the central tenets of financial literacy. Plus I've integrated some, what I call next gen concepts, which is really unique because we grew up, I think I might be a little older than you, but with paper money and values that are different today because kids are having frictionless transactions. I don't know about you, but they're seeing Amazon delivery boxes show up like magic. I mean, they know it's not magic, but it's just so frictionless and they're not seeing the dollar, go back and forth. And I remember growing up where I got one pair of shoes a year. My mom would take me. They're nice little loafers. I was very proud of them. But now my kids, and the tennis shoes, just dozens of tennis shoes. And so there's so many new financial literacy concepts that I wanted to introduce to my kids. So flashback to, the parking lot, I said, I gotta get ahead of this. I need to write down what I want to talk to my kids about regards to money, right? And then that just catapulted. So I wrote that whole MoneyWise and I started teaching it to my I took a whole year to write the course. And then when he was 7 years old, my son, Mateo, I started teaching the Intro to MoneyWise course. And that was very fruitful because when I grew up, money was very emotional. Right. I remember so many times my mom would say, please don't ask me for anything this month because we don't have an extra penny. And so even if she had the skills, which she didn't, to teach me about finance, if the conversation was going to be heavy emotionally. So what I learned is if you just take the content, not as a no to a candy or a trinket, but we're just going to have a class and I'm going to have this proactive conversation with you 10 minutes a week about money. It eliminates all of that yucky stuff that we all might have associated to money. So that was my first course, MoneyWise. And then I built another course called GoalGetter, just something, I always am drawn to what did I not have as a young person? And so character development, goal setting, just learning, mindset techniques, learning about cognitive behavioral therapy, and your thoughts create your feelings. So I was like, I wish when I was 14 years old as a young girl trying to work through life, I knew some of this stuff. So I built that course, GoalGetter, which is a big deal. And then last year, every year we take a camping trip. I read a book. The book always inspires a course. So I read a book, can't stop. Co-Intelligence by Ethan Mollick, all about AI. And since I have, a great foundation in computer science, working in tech, and my background in mathematics, I said also, not only do I need to teach my kids about AI, I want to teach them the way I would share with them, which is not use generative AI to replace your cognitive growth, but the science behind it, right? Teach them AI perception, teach them AI reasoning, representation, and societal impact. So I wrote that course, and that course is what really kind of blew up Kid Laboratories that was in the USA Today, because I feel so many parents are looking for those resources because it is something we have to have a conversation with our kids about. And I believe doing it with sharing the information, getting ahead of it, not letting your kids just fall into a chatbot relationship on the front end, plus giving them, some science and some history could spark, the next contribution. So that's in a nutshell. I know it's a long answer.
That was amazing. No, that's awesome. So you did finances and you did goals and then you did tech.
Homeschool families, are you ready to refresh your plans for the year? Join us at the Homeschool Yo Kids Expo. Meet curriculum and enrichment vendors, discover new programs, and connect with a community that gets it, all in one place. Come with questions, leave with real options. Get event details and register now at homeschoolyokidsexpo.com. That's homeschoolyokidsexpo.com.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And so just to let everybody know, so I teach these all online. I taught 11 to 14-year-old students is usually the base. I have had younger students that are a little bit, progressive. And then, of course, my mom came to me again and influenced me and said, Mija, I would never have been able to afford your classes. The classes when I teach live are very expensive. They're about $400 a course, but I taught them online for $100 to $200. But then again, she even said, I still wouldn't have been able to afford that. So this year, and I take everything she says to heart, I wrote a book, and this I'm so darn proud of. I took a whole year to do it. It's going to be $24.99. So everybody can do it.
Access it.
And basically, I did even more than a book. So I put the book together, and it's every single lesson, like written out for parents, how to have this conversation with their kids, 10 minutes a week. I call it Future Proof Kids, 10 minutes a week. It's all of my lessons on AI, on money, and on character. And then I took it farther because I know it's hard sometimes to have these conversations. I integrated QR codes, and I put a 5 to 7 minute video lesson of me actually teaching that. So what I thought is, if you did want to have these conversations with your kids, but a little bit, uncomfortable, it's new. Maybe you're a homeschooler. It's really easy. Maybe you're not, but want to have a weekly meeting. You could read for the minute and a half about what the subject matter was, and then click on the QR code together watch the video, answer any questions. And then I have a workbook associated. So if you are a homeschooler or want to lock in the learning with the mind-body connection, I always say, you can do a little worksheet after. So I wanted one resource to have it all at, a real easy price point. So everybody could have access to this. Everybody could teach their kids about money, teach their kids about tech, and teach their kids about character. And the big goal is that we all do this together and we can see a categorical shift, where we're going together,
Yes. Okay.
Okay. I tend to have long answers. I'm so sorry, but when I get on my soapbox, it's hard to stop.
No, that is amazing. That is amazing. Okay. So, tell me more about the book. So the book is something that they can go through on their own, but there's also QR codes within the book so that they can access videos from you.
Yes. From me that I've created. So basically, I thought about myself. I'm like the deep dive person. I want to learn everything. Not everybody's like me, right? People want to be able to do stuff in 10 minutes a day. So my sister's that person. She's like, and so I get great feedback from my family. And they're like, no one's going to do that. No one's going to read all that. Right. So I thought exactly, about them. So I broke it up into 3 sections. It's the high level. So for finance, I have a 1-pager of high level, what you must be talking to your kids about money. Okay. Then I go into the about and how to, which is, literally a 1.5-minute read section. What, let's say you're going to talk about savings or income awareness, right? So talk about income awareness. And then there's a QR code right next to that. You click on it and you watch the video instruction. Then of course the accompanying workbook. When you look at, and I make this case in the book, when you look at the positive side effects of doing this work, like taking that 10, it seems like nothing. And that's what I really want parents to know. When you have these conversations with your kids, it's going to seem like nothing, almost like so simple, like this is just too simple. It can't really have a dynamic effect. But the research shows that if we do this, and it only takes, this is really amazing. I learned in social science, there's something called the 3.5% rule, which means that if you and me and 3.5% of what I say in the book of alpha generation. So alpha generation is kids that are 0 to 14 today. And that's about 35 million people. So 3.5% of those people, if we all talk to our kids, hey, listen, this is how we want to connect with spending. This is how we want to connect with income awareness. And even more so about these new complex next gen concepts. I mean, there's click to buy FOMO traps. There is systems that are definitely working against us to spend more money than we need to.
Oh my
There's
goodness.
Conscious spending. I mean, my kids, buy now with the click of a button. There's ecological economics, which is basically, I was a economics and math major, and the whole science of economics eliminated it didn't even include the environment, right? And so now we're seeing so many things with tech. I could just go on about this, like all of these peripheral environmental demands for the tech that we're supporting today. So kind of opening our child's minds to that is really important. And then, oh gosh, there's so many things where I call it lifestyle inflation, where kids just look at a phone and they just see other kids that just have like everything. And so they feel like, I remember feeling that as a young person, like I don't have what they have. And that is very difficult. It's emotional, right? They're trying to fit in. And so if we have a proactive conversation, if we all collaborate on this, again, just 3.5%, you'll see a categorical shift. And what's so fascinating specifically about finance is it's not just what you think. It's not like better savings, better earning, better income, which is all true. It's social, emotional stuff. So there's less stress, there's less anxiety, there's, more confidence. And it also leads to like goal attainment and like all these other things where people are just happier and they're not as anxiety ridden. And so when I learned that, I was like, geez, OP, of course it makes sense as my reflection of my youth, but like, we have to do this. Like we absolutely have to do this because it's going to help us all. And, I laid the groundwork to make it really easy. And so let me just jump ship to digital literacy. So finance, you can see all the wealth of opportunity that we can do. And we have so many models. Let me just land it here with other countries that are already doing this. So in the United States, it's less than like 13% of young people have a general understanding of financial literacy. We're just not having these conversations as parents. And what the stats are is less than half of parents are talking to their kids about money. So don't feel bad if you're not having these conversations. And those that do have conversations about money are only having these conversations when they're asked by their children, which is absolutely fascinating. So again, another great reason to start having these conversations again, if you want to use my book.
Do they say why that?
I think it's lack of confidence, right? Okay. They don't have the paper in front of them because what's funny is so the very first lesson, so people people think that they need to get into even investing, and they need to get in arbitrage when they're talking about finance, they think they need to get deep in the weeds, and it's not true. So I talk about something called the money cycle, and everything from, getting your paper out like I had when you're 10 to, investing in multi-levels when you're older is to do with the money cycle. And this is every single financial decision is. And I always make this funny joke if anybody is a fan of the book, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, I don't know if you remember the father's character, but he's like, give me a word, any word, and I will tell you its roots back to, a Greek word. And that's exactly how I feel about the money cycle. Give me a financial topic, any financial topic, and has to do with the money. And I will tell you, I'll dumb it down for you because people want it to be like so cool and so out there, like some secret of finance. There's none. Right? Yeah, it's earn, save, spend, and budget. That's really all it is. Even if as a business, even as a country, we're gonna trade and we're gonna barter and we're gonna save and we're gonna spend. It's like that's all it is. It's earning money, income awareness, saving, spending, and budgeting, and the money cycle will encapsulate everything. So I believe that people think it's supposed to be more grandiose, and so they don't have these conversations. But it's very, very simple. And one more thing. The first lesson I teach in my MoneyWise course is needs and wants, right? What is a need and what is a want? And it sounds so simple, and this is what I was referring to before. Sometimes you think, oh, that's so simple. Why even have that conversation? That's obvious. The child knows. Mm-hmm. No. And
adults don't know.
Well, that's the number one. That's the number one statement I get when people drop people off or logging in to get. And I wish I was in this course, right? Mm-hmm. And it's the truth. And I've had a financial investor, wealth manager at Wells Fargo say, I know my clients should be in your course. And it's so true. And it's just having this, what we think is going to be a really hard conversation is so easy. But when I taught my 7-year-old son the needs and wants lesson, 10 minutes, literally a week later, we were at a Starbucks for some reason. I don't usually go there. And I was looking at, the $25 mug, and he tugs on my shirt and he goes, Mom, is that a need or a want? And I laughed out loud. I said, touche. And what I want people to know is they're sponges. And you can just feed them information. And then now they're your advocate because they're going to help you. And so I'm Catholic.
Your accountability partner.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And so what I call it, yeah. And so when you're working together and you're like, oh my gosh, I taught them, they learned, they're listening, now they're teaching me. And it's the best, it's the most rewarding thing you can do is realize like now you became this legacy and here he is distinguishing between these things because they're just going to take what you share with them as fact. And then you're like, oh, you're right. And I put the mug down and I went on my day because we're working as a team now, like family dynamics.
Teamwork, yes. Teamwork. Yes. No, I talking with my girls. Like I even correct them mid sentence, and they'll even correct themselves now mid sentence, like about me versus one. It's like, oh, well, no, I want it. I don't need it, but I want it. Like, you know,
right, so right, and they know. Right.
Yes,
and that is huge because what people don't realize is, so I read this study in Stanford recently, at the youngest age of 6, your financial acuity develops. And it's not because you understand finance or the financial system. It's because that's when your brain starts to develop the ability to refrain. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's delayed gratification. And that's another lesson in the course, delayed gratification versus instant gratification. And so your daughters are already starting step 1 process, identification, right? So they can even say, yes, I want this, right? You know, and that's half the battle, right? And then decide, okay, what do we want to do with this desire? How do we want to approach it? Can we, save it for later or have it aligned with a larger goal? But if we don't talk about it, then that never gets to happen. Then it would just shoved under the carpet. And what's happening today with tech is our young people's reward systems are being very hijacked because they're in this like constant screen delayed, instant gratification. And so I just read another study on this that they have no ability to self-regulate because they're so used to instant, buy now, make me laugh, make me cry, make me, So it's really imperative to not only have these conversations and then address that with your child. That's why I wrote the AI workshop and having these conversations about technology because we're not doing them any service. And in the book, these are my confessions, my sins as a parent of this time, because we all fell into this trap. We didn't know 10 years ago what was happening, what we were doing. We went on Instagram. There's a fun new tool. So I throw myself under the bus and say, hey, now that we're here 10 years later, and there is all this research, and we do know how impactful all this tech has been on ourselves and our children. Let's shift. And I'm not saying let's say completely none, but let's identify that what's worked and then use it for the things we need it for, and then go back to things that we know are a bit better for our young person's cognitive development. That prefrontal cortex hasn't been developed yet. So it's just important stuff to talk about.
It is, especially with the instant gratification, because I think that has like made our kids, or not kids, but younger generations stop thinking on goal levels of, okay, I have a goal and this is what I need to do to work towards it. They're like, okay, no, this is what I want. And I need to show up like right now. Like
they skip it. You're completely right.
No step 1, 2, 3. They don't go through the steps anymore. It's like, no, okay. Well, no, he has this following, or he has this, or they're think that all they need is a viral moment, or it's like it's no actual work that they're conceptualizing that they have to actually do.
100%.
They're seeing the results. That's all they're seeing is results.
Exactly. And I couldn't agree with you more. And so I believe in explicit conversations and letting them know that this is not the truth, right? That's a lifestyle inflation kind of component. So it's really fun to have these conversations with your kids. It's fun. For me, I'm happy to know that you exist out there. Other parents that are like, oh yeah, this is my value too. So let's get ahead of it. And, to your point, so the GoalGetter course is exactly like that. At the beginning of the year, I usually do it at the end of the summer. So it's the beginning of the year. It's 5 days, and we talk about each individuals, I make them do an online assessment from the Values in Action website, and basically it highlights their top character traits. There's 6 core virtues and there's 24 character traits that support these virtues, right? And it's super fun because every single person, you and I included, love to learn about themselves, right? What am I good at? What am I good at? And so we do that. And then after, I encourage them to develop courage as a focused virtue, because being courageous includes taking risks, feeling uncomfortable, and then with all of that, we get the reward, right? And then I encourage them because I think so many young people, myself included as a young person, didn't want to feel uncomfortable, and actually aligned failure and discomfort with like, oh, I'm just not good at that, I'll choose something else, right? And I propose to them that no, this is part of it all, right? Like the discomfort is the sign that you're growing, actually. The discomfort is the sign.
You know what I saw today?
What?
I saw a video. It was talking about there is no such thing as a safe space because the risk is always going to be there. So there's a supported space, but there's not a safe space, because there's always going to be risk. If I stand up and I walk, there's a risk that I can fall, I can trip, anything could happen. So it's always like, okay, know that those risks are there. But like you say, you just need the courage to be able to say, all right, but if this happens, I'm going to be able to manage it. Yes.
100%. And what I had to learn, and it was hard because, you're a mom, you want to protect your child, is that to let them feel that. To let them just feel crazy, uncomfortable, and scared, and cry, and realize this is the very first time my son is feeling anxiety. Like he's going to feel it big time. I feel anxiety, pretty regularly myself, but I know what it feels. I can identify it as anxiety, and I can have my, coping mechanisms, or I have something I call thriving abilities that I proposed in the course, to, identify that, hey, this is going to happen. It's part of it. Like me, you, Kobe Bryant, everybody else. If you're doing big things, you're going to feel big things.
Exactly.
So that's a really important component. And then, like you said, the course is designed to see it as a process. And I love that you highlighted that, because I actually have not really highlighted that. It is this like longevity play, right? It's like, okay, every month, and that's what we do in the course. Every month we'll meet on a Zoom, and we all circle back. You said you're going to do this goal. Your goal was to be captain of your soccer team, or your goal was to get your straight A's, or your goal was, to be in your, piano recital, whatever your goal was. And then it's accountability, and it's not rocket science. It's just consistency, and then going through the motions,
and intentionality. Yes. Like being intentional about what you're actually doing and how your time is being spent.
And catching yourself. I catch myself every day with being distracted. With being distracted. If it's there's so many distractions. I have to say, that's not what you're doing now. Come back. That's not what you're doing now. Come back to writing, or come back to it. So I think that's an important component with your child. Say, I catch myself every single day. I'm 49 years old, Exactly. So I can even imagine how you are being distracted with everybody out there. So it's fun. But the last thing for the Goals and Grace, where we land it, is we create something really fun called a dream download. And so the children get to dream about what they're, I believe in big, impossible goals for everybody all the time, because that's where you're going to learn. Like, that's where you're going to fail. That's where you're going to learn if you got grit or not. That's where, so it's super duper fun. And then after the dream download, to your point again about the planning, we create a goal manifesto, which is basically step by step. Week 1, what am I going to do for this 10-month goal? Week 2, what are we going to do for this 10-month goal? Week 3. And then all of a sudden, it doesn't become this dream. It's this palatable little action plan. Yes. How are you going to get there? Yeah. So it's really fun. We do a green screen activity, and the kids, kind of play off of each other. Now with AI, we've even upped the ante. I used to do live a green screen activity where we put them in the position, they want to be OBGYN or whatever their larger goal was. I had a student that was really amazing who ended up going to USC. She was great. She's on my Instagram, Julia, who wanted, to be an OBGYN. And now she's in nursing school. But now with AI, we get to do that, virtually, where instead of putting them in their environment of their goal, we have this really fun thing that we make it a coloring book. So if they want us, we upload a picture of them to ChatGPT and then say, make this image into a coloring book image. And I have all of this. I call it there's future-proof families chapter at the end of my book, which is all these like fun little activities that you can do with your kids at home. Again, I want parents to do this with their kids because who else would be the biggest fan with a parent? Right. And it's like a family fun activity that's so fun because it's all about your kids and like their needs and wants. And I'm telling you right now, your child has a dream that they are like, it's in their heart. I mean, they may not have expressed it to you, but they have like a dream, like they were like how they see their lives. So let's put it to print and like, go for it. And even if you don't reach it, you're going to get halfway there. Like one of my students I'm working with right now in coaching, she wants to go to Cambridge in college in, Europe. And it's pretty much impossible. Like you have to get, 5 out of 5 in all of the AP tests. And it's just it's a ridiculous goal. And I'm all in with her. And I hope to goodness, like she gets there. But if she doesn't reach the target, she'll get into every other school underneath. Right. You know what I mean? Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like she's going to be okay for having tried this insane goal. But back to the, using a ChatGPT. So we create a future fun coloring book. That's what I call it. And so we get this kids after we upload the image of them and they make it into a coloring book image. And then we take that coloring book image and then put a prompt where, okay, now put this in one of my sons wants to be a kicker for, the CU Broncos, the CU Buffs. And so we put that into an image of him being a kicker with his jersey and his name. And so it helps them get excited and visualize what's possible. And again, if he doesn't become an NFL kicker, he's going to get somewhere. Right. And just like develop his grit for trying,
Yes. And I love that, though, being able to see themselves in it, like, putting them in the
it's so different. You will start to cry. I did for Christmas. For Christmas this year, I made them for my family members, my nieces and nephews, and their parents were crying. Right. And it also created everybody can do this on their own, a family crest with their family values and their mission statement and motto. And I created those for my family members. And I'm going to post some of those videos on my Instagram if anybody wants to see and make one for themselves, because it's really fun. It's all about, I always said, this is even before I got into this business. 20 years ago, I would say, you know what the answer to everything is? The answer to everything is 2 words, and that's family values. Like it all starts in the family. And I'm talking about like big social issues. It's really like if families are on track and working together and have, their values in check, it really is the solution. So that's where I want to start, is working with families and just creating dynamic people and then working together, and know that this contribution, all this effort, because it is effort, all this energy will like make the ticker of life go a little bit in the right direction, a little bit more.
I love that. You're helping. Like, you are really reaching and growing families.
It's fun. Yes. Yeah, it's great. It's super fun.
I feel like what you're doing is you're encouraging parents to talk to their kids. Like, that's what I'm always trying to tell them. Talk to your kids. Like, because, like the kids get to high school, you think you know them, but you don't know them for real. You don't know what they want to do. You don't know their goals. You don't know what their dream. Like you said, your kid has these dreams brewing. And especially and this isn't any diss to the system or anything, but if your child's in the public school system and you're working 9 to 5 and all this stuff, y'all are missing each other all the time.
Oh, I think of how many hours that is.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
You know,
So
so
that time and that reconnection of, hey, where are we at with things? Like, okay, what goals are you working on right now? Like, that's important. That's
hmm
important because it's teamwork. No, I call my girls my
yes.
gang. Like, that's gang right there. Like, we are
Oh,
all
that's very
in.
cute.
Yes.
hmm
Like we
hmm
talk about everything, all their impossible dreams, girl, because they got some.
That's good. But that's what's fun. And, you know, and that's what emotionally changes your chemistry. And that's what gets you into action. So why wouldn't you do that? You know, the opposite will take you into inaction. So of course you need to keep that just big impossible goal out there.
Yes. And I think seeing you in action is a game changer for kids because my girl, because they're with me, they watch me build everything from the ground up. They've been a
That's
part
amazing. That
from
is the most valuable.
everything. And so they know what I do. They see me work. They work with me. They travel with me. Like,
hmm
the oldest one hosts the expos. Like
Yeah.
it's a family affair. Like this is
Uh-huh.
our thing. It's not a me thing. It's an our thing. And so they're
That's
always
great.
looking and working okay, how can we expand this? How can we grow this? What do we need to do? So
Oh, that's fantastic. That's so good for their creativity.
but that's what families how to look at it though. Like they are teams. Like that's your
hmm
team. That's your first team. Before you step
Uh-huh.
outside, that's your first line of defense. That's your first ever, your pick me up, your everything. That's why I always like the support needs to start at home. The
hmm
affirmations got to start at home. The pouring into hey, before you step out that door, I need you to know this. I need you to feel
hmm
this. I need you to carry this with you out that door because,
Oh,
like you said, once you go out that door, like those family values, like with what has been instilled in you is what's going to show once you're outside. Because the
uh-huh.
world is, the world's going to continue to hit you in the face as many times. Like the wind. It's like as soon as you step out there, boom, boom, boom.
Uh-huh.
It's like, okay, but I'm not gonna fold from this. Like, who my mom is, what, who
Right.
I am. Like,
Right. 100%.
yeah. So I love what you're creating. So are you homeschooling?
So I don't homeschool. I homeschooled up until kindergarten, and then my kids went to school. I taught at my church school a little bit. I did a STEM program for them. That's when I learned so much. That's when I learned that it's fourth grade that kids decide if they like science or math, and that's just when science gets a little bit harder. My third son is also autistic, and so I work with him at home, and he goes to a specialty school for some behavioral and just more like functional development type of stuff. But I do teach them after school. I do all my courses. I always say, I remember that old school uh, serial, kid tested, mother approves. That's my business.
Yes.
So every single course I write, I test on my kids, and and I teach them. That's why I started with MoneyWise, and I taught my son Mateo, my oldest son, he was a little young, 9, the AI workshop course last year, which has been kind of fun. It's just so fun because he has an appetite for it, but also they give me feedback, right? And so when things aren't landing well, I can adjust. And then my favorite part is the GoalGetter course, and they love it, right? Like they loved it. Like when I made them their future fun coloring books, they were just like beaming from ear to ear. My youngest, middle son, Levi, I was thinking if I could find it really quick. He just instantly got into coloring it, and it was part of who he was. So that's been really rewarding.
I love that because you are supplementing. You're doing what you know that's not being done. So it's like, okay, let me be hands on. Let me make sure that
Uh-huh.
y'all have this information because parents are quick to point out what they didn't learn in public school, but then they send their kids to public school and hope that they learn it. I guess.
Well, that's definitely right. Like we know there is, but there's also, so for me, I'm a huge advocate for public school only because they're just trying to help the masses, right? And there's so much like the history of the US and like how this is like basically a civil liberty to have education, and it helps us all, right? Keeps crime down and helps for socioeconomics, like all these things. So I'm a huge advocate for public school. However, there's some things they just can't. Like there's a big study I read. Jonathan Haidt's The Coddling of the American Mind. So the central concept here is that we're overprotecting our kids outside and underprotecting them online. Okay. So they're on their phones and they have no barriers, but when they're outside, like, don't jump off that, play set. But what we've learned now, and thank goodness for science, is that all of these things help the brain. You want them to feel risk. You want them to fall and stumble off the playground. And so, I don't know about you. I live in Southern California. It rains maybe, 10 times a year. And when I pick up my children from school, the school walks each child out with an umbrella over, like they can't even get a drop. And I freak out and I'm like, rip that umbrella off, like get wet, feel nature. And but the problem is the schools can't afford the risk because this litigious society. So they have to build all these barriers for protection, and it's no service to our children. So there was a reel I did on my Instagram. We are the only ones who can allow the risk. They're our own children. So my son, we do a little hike after church every Sunday. This preserve, it's not really a hike. It's more like a flat walk. But when my middle son's like, Mommy, can we walk home after this? And I live in a kind of rural spot. And walking home is not really an option because there's no shoulder. There's no sidewalk. And there's no shoulder. And there's really blind curves. And so I was like, no, we can't walk home. That's crazy. But I used to always walk home, right? The reason I have a best friend is because one day we were at the library and we were like, let's walk home. And that's our great child. And we walked through fields. It was a great childhood memory. And so I said, you know what? He's asking me to walk home. This kid's 6. It's a 3-mile walk. I don't know. I have no idea why he asked me. He had on water shoes because things they're not always where there should be in my home. So he had his crazy shoes on. And I was like, this kid who's 6 wants to walk 3 miles. I'll go with him. Fine, Levi, let's go. So we walked with him, but I realized, and then my husband ended up dropping off his older brother. And so we had this adventure. So then, we found, oh my gosh, so much roadkill. We found all these dead animals, which was really fun. It sounds gross, but it was really just their boys. And so they were like, oh my gosh, look at that raccoon. So there's these fallen trees they, balanced on, and end up being this epic memory that they were like, oh my gosh, Mom, every time we drive by, do you remember we walked home? So now it's this tiny little adventure we had and the memory we had, but school could never do this. They could never, because the risk, I'm sure people saw me and were like, what is that crazy lady doing walking on the side of the road? This is risky. And it was, but I did it because he asked me to. And I can allow them to have that because I am their mother, where schools can't do it. So that's why schools can't necessarily teach your kids about what your values are with money, right? They can try, and there's this high level, they can have some conversations, but you need to be in the weeds with your kids about money because you can't expect the schools to do that. And by the way, they're not going to listen because if your history teacher is also your finance teacher, it's just going to be lost, right? I really think there's a lot of role modeling in help financial conversations. And then also, they just won't allow your kids to grow the way you want your kids to grow. We can't, as much as I believe in the system for equality, I really do. It has to exist. The public school system has to exist because people just aren't going to take on that role of educator. It's just impossible for a lot. We also need to make sure we contribute for our unique messaging for our kids. And that's why I wrote the book, because if people didn't have their thoughts together, because it takes time and energy, I put all the thoughts together. Here's some, here's the baseline.
Blueprint.
Here's a blueprint, and then you take it from there. And then put your own perspective on it. And I don't think you will, but even if you disagree, be like, I wouldn't say it that way. Say it your way. Right. But like start the conversation. I almost named the book Start the Conversation, because that's all I really wanted. Like, start this conversation with your kids. 10 minutes a week. That's all it takes.
No, I feel like maybe the next generations will not be so, because you know how it's always said, like, you're not supposed to talk about what, money, religion, or politics.
Politics, yep.
Yeah, those are the three things. But those are like three things that I feel like everybody should be talking.
Oh, that's so funny. You're absolutely, I've never thought about that. Those are the top three things you should be talking about.
Top three things you should be talking about.
Those are like 1, 2, and 3.
It's frowned upon. Yeah, it's frowned upon. You're not supposed to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So once we release that mindset of, oh, these things are off limit, which I feel like that's the direction we're going in, because we're having new conscious parents. We're having more intentional parents. They're having these financial literacy talks. They're having these religious talks. They're having, okay, what's going on in the current. I just saw a post that asked, my children are, what she said, 6, I think she said 6 and 8. When do I start talking about current events? It's like, girl, when you want to, like, if you want to, when you want to, really. But it's just like parents are having these thoughts now. It's not as, okay, I'm gonna just sit back and watch and let's see what happens. We're having more active parents. We're having more parents that are present and wanting to make sure that their children are receiving all they need. So I feel like in the next, couple generations, that whole, we don't talk about money thing is going to be out the window, because my girls are front and center with my budget.
You know what? I'm going to, raise the flag to that 100%. I believe, and you can see how every 10 years there's a social shift. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. That would be a goal. That would be a goal for me to contribute to that we're just financially.
You are.
Right. That would be a goal. And then, but you can see, so another thing in the research for this, I said, okay, this is my goal. Exactly what you said. Let's have these conversations. And what would be, the outcome of this goal? We talked about all of that. But then the examples we have in the world, if you look at Germany has this ridiculous economy, right? So in the United States, what we're used to is a boom bust, right? If you look at the history of, the economy, or more specifically, the stock market, it goes up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. Okay. And that actually creates all this anxiety and stress, And so, but if you look at Germany, it's not as, not as, what's the best word? Not as dramatic, right? But it's going slowly up. Slowly up, slowly up. You know what's that? That's confidence. That's financial well-being. That's social emotional stability. And that's what would be my aspiration. And the children there, I don't think I brought this up, over 50% of the young people there are being taught financial literacy in the school. And to your point, culturally, they're talking about this stuff at home. They're just more astute. That's just how that's how they're raised. And I bring it up in my course. There's a German word, it's called Haushälterisch, which just means being thrifty. That's all. And so they have like Haushälterisch is like what everybody wants, to be like kind of smart with their money and, not overspend. I mean, it sounds kind of funny, but this is like their culture. But my point is, this is a blueprint of how it works. We're not going to experience this up and down, boom, bust, and we're just going to slowly grow. And that, to your point, is how I see this contribution being. If we could just take 3.5% of us, make a 10% shift, and I really am hoping all these conscious parents and parents like myself that are like, I'm going to get in the weeds. I want to have these conversations. And for me, mostly because I didn't have that role modeling when I grew up, and I'm totally down to have it for my kids. I want to, give them more than I ever had. And it's not just material goods. It's like the belief in their possibility.
The knowledge.
The knowledge. Yeah.
Yes.
So, and so little by little, but like little by little, we can get there. And I do think we'll look back in 10 years and be like, oh my God, high five, we did it.
Right. Right. Yes.
Yeah, we did it.
Yes.
We took that 10 minutes and we just did it. That'll be great.
Baby steps. Yeah. That's all. Baby steps.
Yeah. 10 minutes. Let's go.
Yes, ma'am. And you have created the resources for it with all of the social emotional concepts that you focus on and understanding the power of your mind and just the power of yourself in general. How do you pour into yourself? How do you self-care?
Oh, that's a great question. So I'm a woman of faith. I'm Catholic, which is important. But, I was doing this the other day, exercise every single day, right? I was at the church the other day and they're talking about the power of reconciliation, admitting your sins. And then I'm like, yeah, that's really important. Don't get me wrong. I believe in that. Forgiveness, 100%, forgiving other people because like not carrying that baggage, because now that person has power if you're not able to forgive. And also like move your body. Yes. Like I feel euphoric when I run. I lift weights. That's something new for me. 10 years ago, after my son was born, I decided I'd never lift a weight in my whole life. I was really like, I thought that, you're going to get big and bulky. Absolute lie. I always wanted to be thin. That was an absolute lie. You feel weak and powerless. I started lifting weights. That's the greatest thing that ever happened to me because I feel strong and powerful. So that's a way I self-care. I also, I started little things like we got this little fake piano keyboard. I do things that are like create art, right? Self-expression. And do things that I've never done before, like music or like writing this book or just create, make a homemade salad dressing. Or I have a little, I call them California biscotti, where I put, collagen peptides and protein powder, and I make my homemade biscotti. Little things that are, I kind of like the European way, where it's just small, it's homemade, and it's great. Or like, taking 15 minutes instead of, and this is, I'll be totally honest here, the thing I'm really working on, getting my, off social media. Like I told myself this year, I'm going to not be scrolling, because I lie to myself. I say, I'm scrolling because I'm trying to find content. No, it had become an addiction. And if anybody's on masterclass, I take masterclass. I'm always learning. There's a great new masterclass, and this woman, oh God, where is she? She's Stanford, a scientist, that she confessed to. She was addicted to reading these young people novels about vampires, wasting all of her time. So get myself off, social media and do something different, like play piano, learn something new. So that's really a self-care for me. How about you?
Well, I'm a walker. I walk. I read a lot. I love reading.
Oh, that's good.
For every fiction, I said I'm gonna read a nonfiction. So it was funny you mentioned Kobe earlier, because I just finished reading this book called Sham Guy, and it's about a basketball player. It's nonfiction. It's a biography, and he was friends with Kobe. They both played in the league together and whatnot, and just Kobe's mindset has just always been so phenomenal, like that everyone recognized it so early on. And he's just talking about how he used to call Kobe France, because that's where he's from. Oh, he's from Europe, but he used to call him France. I know, like fun facts. But just his tenacity, because they were supposed to meet up in the gym at like 5:30, and Kobe was there already, like earlier. I know he's not in there. And he said he was in there already sweating, chewing his gum like MJ, and doing all this stuff, whatever. But
oh God, yeah.
Yeah, so I like that you have mentioned him because Kobe's cool. Kobe's cool. He's
I mean,
great
and Michael Jordan. I mean, I read about him too. Like he would do the push-ups. He'd just do like 5 more than they'd ever want. You know, they just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And even my son, who's 9, and I don't even ever think saw Kobe play. You know what he says when he tries to make a basket? Kobe. Like the legacy of this human being. You know, God rest his soul.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes. Yeah. So I do things like that. I'm a big reader. But I take time. Oh, I love to play chess. Chess is my my go-to. As opposed to scrolling, I pull up a chess game on my phone and I'll play chess. But yeah, like self-care. Well, self-care, I would like to do more, and I know I will incorporate other things, you know, in the future. But I'm pretty mindful about those two: walking and reading. Like walking and reading are mine. Like we're gonna do this.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah. Fills up your cup. It's important.
Where do we find you?
So Kid Laboratories is the name of my business. Mm-hmm. It's www.kidlaboratories.com. That's plural. Labortories, at Kid Laboratories on Instagram. And, you know, I'm on LinkedIn. I do have Teachers Pay Teachers and Pinterest if people want to see more stuff. I have some, I'm going to start uploading all of my new courses on Teachers Pay Teachers for digital downloads if there's teachers out there. And then in March is when the book will be launched. So if homeschool parents are interested and they want a discount, they could just DM me, you know, Homeschool Yo, and then I could give 10% discount for those materials. And that'll be great because that'll be the book, the integrated QR codes, video lessons, and then the workbook that accompanies that.
Nice. You're doing amazing things. And I really appreciate the effort that you're putting into making sure parents are having these conversations because we want to get out of this rut. We're trying to break these cycles. Like,
right? I think so too.
Yes, you're helping to break those cycles. So thank you. Thank you for the work you're doing. It's like, what?
You don't know how. That just means the world to me because it's a big deal. So thank you for saying that.
It is. This is what this platform always reminds me of, is like getting to talk with individuals who are as passionate about helping parents lead their children's education as I am, because we understand the importance of it all. Like we can't delegate this to anyone else. Like no matter what setting they're in, it's still going to fall back on you guys. Like, so understand that you are supported though. Like it's not something you have to figure out or find or do on your own. There are individuals who are passionate about ensuring that you are supported. So tap into the resources because we're breaking these cycles all 2026. Right? All right.
2036, we're going to be like, yes, we did it. Yes.
High five. Double high five. Yes. But parents, in the meantime, in between time, remember always and forever, homeschool your kids.